Hi everyone, Suzanne here. If you don't know me, I call myself a gardening and cut flower enthusiast, and I garden and grow cut flowers in my garden and cutting patch in Devon. Not very sunny Devon today, a little bit overcast and a little bit windy. But what I thought I'd do in this week's video is catch you up on all those gardening jobs that I've been up to. It's all filmed, it's very bitty. Some of it's filmed really early when there's frost, some of it's filmed later in the afternoon when it's thawed out. So we're in the greenhouse, it's very early in the morning, hence the frost on the greenhouse. One side stays fairly clear, we've got the bit by the hedge there and then the bit along the side. The roof still gets a frost, but I always try and keep most of my more tender things on the side where it doesn't freeze up so much. I thought I'd just take you through a few things that are in the greenhouse this morning. We've got over here some Phacelia, which I know people mainly grow as a green manure, but it's also quite a fast seed to flower plant. And because a lot of my autumn annuals have not made it in the frost yet this year, I thought I would get them going, so I've got something. And then over here we have got, I think this is Beplurum, so that's a tray of Beplurum there. Because I don't grow large quantities of things, there's just loads of little bits all in the same trays. So these are cornflowers, these big pots here. These are stocks, these ones are apricots along here. Some calendula, coffee cream here. These are some of the ones that we sowed together. Which ones are these? These are the canary bird that we sowed together, and you can see they're doing a lot better than the ones that I sowed in the autumn. Although this does not look like a snapdragon to me, I think that might be a rogue stock. We will see as he gets older. Some more stocks here. There's a lot of singles in here, but because I'm not like a proper flower farmer or a huge grower, I just grow the singles, and instead of using them as a focal flower, they're just sort of a filler or an accompaniment. So that doesn't matter so much to me. We've got another succession of sweet peas here. I think later today we'll come along and we'll just fill in these holes. I think one of them, this one, I know won't come out because I accidentally killed it. I got it caught between the tray and the pot and pulled the leaves off and it died. This one's just shooting, this one's just shooting, but I will just stick an extra seed in these two cells and in the end cell, the one I broke. So I must get the right ones for that. And I'm going to sow some more sweet peas today as well, I think, because for the space I've got, I need 30. I know I've got my autumn sown ones, but I also like to put a few in the garden as well. So we'll sow some more sweet peas. Some autumn sown things here, some salvias, salvia viridi there. These are scabious summer fruits. I will talk about my spacing for plants, but I only need to grow 15 scabious. So I've got summer fruits there. And yeah, next to the sweet peas, what's this one? This one, oh, the label's snapped. That'll be Guess Who when they come out. This is one of the autumn sown sweet peas here that isn't in the cold frame. The rest are in the cold frame. We'll look at those actually, because I planted half into horse poo and half into compost. So it'll be interesting to see how they've grown on. Oh, here are some more scabious here that need potting on. Some more stocks. These ones are going to go out into the low tunnel. This is lavender. Oh, and I've got some more cuttings in here, and I'll tell you about it a bit more later, but I've lost a few plants in the garden, so I've got trying to see if I can get a cutting from them, but we'll have a look in the garden and we'll go through that later. Who's this? More cornflowers, and then I'll take this cover off now. This is just because I'm being a bit nervous. Oh, here are the Brighton Rock Snapdragons, and I'm worrying about my phlox, so that's why I covered them, give them an extra cover overnight. So that one's creme brulee, and then oh, larkspur. We're going to have to sow some more larkspur, and then more phlox, and that one's cherry caramel. And the ranunculus are doing well, but I think I'm going to have to kick them out because I usually have an extra shelf down there in the greenhouse, and I just really feel like I need the room. So the plastic has arrived for the low tunnel, so they might have to go out there. Here we are at a cold frame. Okay, so these are the ranunculus that are still in their trays. Like I say, we've got the cover to go on the low tunnel now, so we can get those out. My Amy looked like it didn't like the frost very much. The grass is still got a really heavy frost, and there'll be no digging for a few hours because it's rock solid. But what happened was I carefully closed my low tunnel every night, but last night I accidentally left it with a crack open. But I think it will be all right. That's a really poor tray of Nigella. There's some more snapdragons. A load of dying cuttings, although that sedum looks like it might just make it. Let's have a look at these sweet peas and see the difference between the poo and the manure and see if there is a difference. So what's this one? So this one is one that's been grown in manure. So oh. Okay, so he looks pretty healthy. Can't see anything obvious. And then this is one that's been grown in compost. Yeah. But generally, they look very similar. So that's the compost ones, and that's the manure ones. If I had to make a bet on it, I would say, I don't know if you agree, I think the compost ones look a bit leggier, whereas the manure ones look a bit bushier. They were all pinched out at the same time and sown at the same time, and they are all the same variety. It could just be the way they're laying, but I just think perhaps some of these have just gone a bit... Oh, in fact, this one is dead. Oh, that's very... Actually, he might... I'll give him a tidy up in a water. I think he's very dry. We'll add that to the to-do list for today. And then we've got some ladies' mantle here. Right, now, the plastic for my low tunnel has arrived. So we're going to go and put it on the low tunnel, and then I'm going to plant, I don't know, 2 ranunculus, because, I mean, it's so cold. There's a bucket of water here in the garden, which has still got a block of ice in it. So, and we're like nearly midday now. So I'm really, really reluctant to plant too many ranunculus out. So anyway, we'll go and look at this plastic cover, check it fits, and then put a few sacrificial ranunculus in the low tunnel. Okay, it's typical, it's really windy now, and I want to try and put a piece of plastic on my low tunnel. So this is the plastic sheet I've got, and we're going to put it over, and then I'm just going to weight this down. And I think what I'm going to use some pieces of oak. So I'll just go and get those organised, and then we'll cover the tunnel and see what it looks like. Okay, so these are my pieces of oak. I've tried to get quite heavy pieces. And this is the tunnel with the Enviromesh. And I did a frost test on this. And the single skin here, which I've tested, definitely isn't frost-proof. But in the middle area here, there's a double skin. I'm going to be interested to see what that's like. But this is really going to be better, I think, for just reducing wind and rain, and just making the environment a little easier but still allowing ventilation. And then this is the tunnel that's yet to be covered. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the cover fits. I've got loads more of this oak, so I'm going to go ahead and stick some more weights down on it, just because I don't want to really lose the bit of plastic. The idea is to reuse it again and again. I've just left one end open because that's where I'm going to plant my sacrificial ranunculus to see if they can survive a frost tonight. Okay, so I've got this Amimagus as well because they are frost sensitive, just to get an idea of how good the tunnel is, not for this year but maybe for next winter. So these have been surviving in the cold frame, but they weren't surviving outside, so I'm trying to see really if this is as good as the cold frame or not, because if it is, this would actually just be a really good space for putting pots of hardy annuals that I autumn sow to then plant in their proper locations in the spring. So we'll just plant this in anywhere because he's not staying in here. It really is just an experiment. So we'll just shove him in here and we're just gonna see if he survives the night. Okay, and then the true experiment really is for the ranunculus. There's a few lumps of manure in here still. Okay, so we'll just put a couple in. Ranunculus are a bit hardier really. So I'm expecting them to be okay really. I'll be really disappointed if they're not. Although the soil is actually really cold and a bit frozen in here because obviously we've only just put the cover on. So that might be an effect. Okay, so I've put, oh dear, iPad's filthy now. I've put 6 ranunculus in and 1 Amimagus. Let's flip you around so you can see. So there's the Amimagus and 6 ranunculus, which we will now tuck in and cross our fingers that they survive these cold temperatures. Okay, so while we're out here with the tunnels, I'll just show you what I've been up to over the last week or so in the extension. Okay, so here are the tunnels, 1 plastic, 1 Enviromesh. I've changed how I was going to fasten the Enviromesh, and what I've done is I've just used cable ties to just loop through the mesh and then just hooked it on screws, because that way I can take it on and off to plant and to cut, but luckily this lets water through, so it won't have to come off as frequently as the plastic, because obviously the plastic will have to come off to water the plants. So that's a bit of a change. The other thing is I got this big bag of sawdust delivered and got really excited. I thought it was going to be a really good mulch. But I've realised it actually sucks a lot of nitrogen out of soil. So it would be better if I mix it in with my compost. Speaking of which, I've changed where I'm putting my compost bays. So these white posts signify my composting area. And I'll just go back so you can see. So there's the white post there, that end. and then the white post there, that end. So that's going to be for composting. And the reason I've done that is, no surprises, I've decided this area where the compost was going to be is going to be an extra bed, which is marked out, but obviously needs to be done. These beds are coming on nicely. In fact, I've even got some stakes. These are bits of metal from my polytunnel that I no longer have. So recycle. And then I need to work out some stakes for these other beds. And then I've got another bed that's going to be along here, which is a long-term project. I don't need that right away. So all we're doing really is killing the grass under there at the moment, and I'll deal with that at some point. And you can see the fence posts are in. Okay, so lots of fence posts all the way along. But we still need to unfasten this central fence to take it along the edge there. So that's still to do. Okay, so this is my tulip bed, and you can just see this variety here is poking up. This is Showcase. It's been a really dry February, and this is quite a dry end of the garden. And I've always grown my tulips in the raised bed before. In fact, you can see odd bulbs that have been missed, where it's, you know, there's a bit more moisture. So I'm concerned that I need to give this a really, really good water. Otherwise, I think I'm going to have really, really short stems. Okay, so that's the roses mulched. You can see these are coping with the frost really well. Lovely new growth on there. And this one, well, these 5 here are Champagne Moment. And these 5 here are Joie de Veuve. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. I'll put it up on the screen. My raspberries have been pruned and mulched. My biennials have moved. I don't know if I've told you this about me, but I'm really impatient, and it's not a good thing. If I've painted a wall, I will move the furniture in before it's dry and have paint all over the furniture. Basically, I wanted to widen this path. It was only a 50cm path before. I wanted to make it 1 metre because this will be my main pathway through to the extended area, and I need to be able to get a wheelbarrow through there. And I plant really close to the edge of the bed, so stuff does tend to hang into the paths a bit, so that's why I needed to do that. I have weeded and mulched these beds here, so that was a job I could tick off, so that's great. So the hedge has had a cut. This is our beech hedge, and the buddleia has had a prune. I don't like doing it because the birds like to sit there. It's close to the bird feeder. And then I've gone along this bed, and I'm no dig, but I had to get out a load of couch grass and sting nettles, and they had these roots that just ran down so far. I did sort of have to dig it a bit. Because I think this is the time of year to try and get on top of the weeds now, because when I start gardening cut flower garden, this garden, the cottage garden, gets a bit more neglected, so I need to give it a really good weed and mulch now. So I didn't get very far. I'll just give you more of a wide aspect. So I've gone all the way along here, and I just got to the tree. And what I was talking to you about earlier about cuttings was I have a really lovely hebe covering this tree stump. Beautiful colour. I'll see if I can find some pictures of it in the garden in the summer seasons. And then I also had a really lovely Hebe there, which was quite sentimental. It was one that was given to me at my sister-in-law's wedding. And they'd done really, really well. And I also had a fuchsia, which I'll show you. So I had a fuchsia here in front of this really unsightly bit of metal. And the birds love to sit in it because it's right next to the bird bath and the bird feeder. And during the drought, I thought these shrubs are all just looking terrible because of the drought, and I just kept watering them, and they didn't look any better. So when I've come to investigate, it actually turns out that what's happened is where all these beds are sort of in the bank, this hedge all along behind here and up behind the tree there is a bank. And what had happened is rats had tunnelled in under the two Hebes and the fuchsia and basically undermined their roots. So it wouldn't have mattered how much water I gave them, their roots were sitting in rat tunnels. So I've tried to take a cutting of the Hebe which was just still alive, but the fuchsia and the Hebe from the wedding were just completely dead, so there's no chance of saving those. And I've put, because it was a really dark leaf Hebe there, I've put a dark leaf Physocarpus in there. But the only difference, of course, is that the Physocarpus won't have any leaves over the winter, whereas the Hebe did. Okay, so we're in the greenhouse. I filmed a little bit in the greenhouse really early this morning when I filmed all the frost on the glass, and I showed you a few of the things that I've got going on here. I wanted to talk a little bit about seed sowing. And if you haven't perhaps got like the heated mats and things like that in your greenhouse, which I don't have, quite often at this time of year it's warm enough in the greenhouse for me to start seeds in here, particularly if I'm using propagators with lids, and things have always started really well. It's really cold this February and we're going through a really, really cold spell. And things haven't been germinating in here. I tried stocks in here. The ranunculus I'd put in here that I started on a video didn't sprout either. And last year I did those in mid-February in here and they did sprout. So they have been taken out of the compost they were in because luckily they hadn't rotten, put into fresh compost and put in the house, and they've only just started sprouting now, and that was sort of 4 weeks ago they were started. So it is a bit trickier, and what it means is that I have to start things in really small batches because I've got 2 heated propagators on a windowsill that are only this size. So that basically fits 1 seed tray, so I can either do 2 seed trays at a time or 4 little seed trays. So it just means getting everything sown is a bit of a logistical nightmare. But luckily, because I'm growing on a small scale, I don't need huge quantities of everything. I haven't brought my notes on that out, but basically the stuff that like sort of 30 centimetre spacing, I only need 9 of each of those things. So those things are things like Cleome, Cosmos, Status, Bells of Ireland. There's only 9 of each of those plants, unless I decide I'm going to do 2 metre sections, which sometimes I do. So sometimes I'll think, and I'll do different colours. I'll do like 9 of white Cosmos and 9 of a different Cosmos. But because I'm got all these old packets of seed to use up this year, I think I'm just going to have loads of variety. And then next year I'm going to really knuckle down and really reduce what I'm growing. I'm going to go through this year and criticise everything, and if it doesn't tick enough boxes for me, it's going to be taken off my list and I won't grow it next year. So it is possible to grow just with a couple of little heated propagators like that, but it does mean you need to, as soon as the thing has germinated, you need to get it out and get the next thing in there. So the only things I'm going to sow today, because of a lack of space, are my Rudbeckia Sahara. Both packets of these seeds were gifts that I had. Oh my god, they're just amazing. The Sahara, just absolutely loved it, so I really need to get those growing. Just some Breezer, the quaking grass. I didn't really use this so much in bunches of flowers because the stems were quite short, but I used it a lot for making dried wreaths and things in the autumn and the winter, so, and especially at Christmas, so we'll grow some of that. Then I've just brought out a load of sweet peas just to fill in the holes I showed you earlier in the trays there, and I just want to start a few of the ones where I've only got odd ones left in the packet. So I've only got a few of Perfect Pastels by Chilton's, a couple of Sorbet again by Chilton's, and then a couple of Watermelon. And basically I'm just going to use that seed up because there's only odd ones left in the packets, and they'll probably go in my garden. I've got like a little obelisk above a bench, and that's nice to have some sweet peas there, so that's what they're for. So I've got a couple of little trays because I don't need hundreds and hundreds of the... In fact, the grass is in really small cells, so they need potting on a lot quicker. In fact, I don't even know if the seeds will fit in there. I think it's usually quite a big seed. And then that trays for the Rudbeckia. But I need to go ahead and water these before I put the seeds in there. So I'll go and fill up a watering can. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and do these Rudbeckia. There aren't very many instructions on these packets actually. I probably should have looked up what I did last year. I'll see how big the seed is. Sometimes you can tell from how big the seed is. Okay, so they're tiny, so they probably do want light. There actually are loads of seeds in here, so it's not a terrible disaster if I get this wrong. Okay. It is nice when people give you such thoughtful presents. I've always wanted to grow, is there one called Cherry Brandy, the Rudbeckia? But this goes down to me buying too many seeds and not having enough space. I've managed to refrain, but we might try Cherry Brandy next year. You cannot, if you've got small space, grow everything, and that's why I've really got to whittle it down. And we'll have a video at some point about all things I'm definitely not growing again. I mean, things like that will be on it, like Nicotiana. It's lovely. I've grown 2 different varieties before, but it's really sticky. And it gets covered in bugs. So just not going to grow it again. And there'll be loads more on my list like that. But I think I want to wait and see how we start the season now, because I think there'll be other things that are going to be added to the list for sure. Okay, so this is what I meant by I wasn't sure if the breezer seeds would fit in the little cells. Oh, you wouldn't want to do this outside. It's just the husky bits of the seeds, so they're really light. Let's see if I can get them in. And I'll cover these because they're slightly bigger. I probably will put a little sprinkling on the Sahara as well. Okay, so just going to put 1 in each cell. And I'll take those into the house when I go in for lunch. It's actually, with the sun in here, it's lovely in here at the moment. It's just the nighttime temperatures are dropping so low. Right, okay, just chuck a bit of compost on top of those. And then, yep, they'll be ready to go in when I go in for lunch. Okay, there we are. Job done. I feel like it's been a really strange, bitty video this week, but I just had so much I wanted to sort of catch you up on. And then I think next time we're going to do a video, it's going to be slightly more about how I know how many seeds to sow and things like that. I'm not promising that, but that's what I think it's going to be. So I'm sorry this week's video was a bit bitty. It's just really catching you up on all the things that I've been doing. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.